Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today we're going to be reviewing a track from an act named Death Grips titled Guillotine. It goes yeah. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves the video here on the screen. Death Grips with Guillotine, I'm not sure which one it is. Now, I haven't listened to Death Grips before. I've been recommended to listen to them. I feel like I'm incredibly out of loop. And just a warning to people who are big fans of Death Grips, as I know they do have a fan base, I just may not get it. So please don't take me either liking or disliking this as like a final thought. I'm going to listen to a bit of their music later on. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. But let's do it. Let's go. I like the sound of the drums with the bass, they're pretty cool.
It goes, Guillotine! Sit in the dark and ponder how I'm fit to make the bottom fall to the floor, and they all fall down. It goes. Out of the shadows, barrage of witch tongue, cobras spit over apocalyptic cold. Killer cauldron, smoke, stop music, seriously. It goes. Can't stop the groove, looks jaws, clear off them locks, relentless raw movement for the knock. Meter that G-spot body rock connected to everything you want, ever did want. We got it, one knock, come get us together in that hole and watch me drop this cold guillotine death sentence. Yeah. It goes, guillotine!
Fierce to rise of that, man.
Hidden all between and beneath every fragmented figure of speech, tongue in reverse whenever the beat causes my jaws to call. Ow! Yeah! The screen flashing red, can't see shit ahead. Spinning axis like planets, out of orbit off the edge of my actions, ripping the doors to far more than all that's ever been said. Yeah. Tie the cord, kick the gem and you're dead. Yeah. It goes, Guillotine! Guillotine! Head of a trick in a bucket, body of a trick in a bag, and thrown in the fire like fuck it. Gotta burn it before it goes bad. But too many times been disgusted by the stench of riding such a drag. Get broke by the street like bloodstained glass. Choke on these nuts to the very last. It goes.
And the synth sequences are fun as
Serial
well.
number, killing machine, the illest of means. Doing them build on the filthy sound you're experiencing. It goes, tinted windows, bulletproof. The slip not fixing rope to noose to the gravestone grinder of cold steel. The passion that blinds me so I feel you. They go to it, flows through our veins, blows through our tunnels and rattles our chains, and they all fall down.
But the sound design is incredible, especially for early 2010s. I think this came out 15 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Ex-military mixtape, 2011, thirdworlds.net. I kind of get it. We're going to talk about it more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Death Grips titled Guillotine. It goes, yeah! In this section, I can't do it justice. He's far better at it. In this section, we're going to provide an overall song analysis of everything from lyrics and vocals all the way through to studio production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally, my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. First of all, what do we think this track is about? It's interesting. Clearly, we talk about it coming down, and it's almost like there's an execution going on. We talk about the kind of the beat itself, the sound of it, how kind of like excessive and intense it is in certain parts as well. And there's also mention of like bulletproof windows and stuff like that, so it could simply be the kind of way that he's going through life, kind of like him keeping himself protected while sort of like laying it down on others. What I like about it is that when he does more sort of percussive, yeah, like that sound, you get the foley of a guillotine going down and kind of like doing the deed, and it's this kind of amorphous kind of combination of different lengths of beat focused around that main sort of like scintillating around the bass note. And he's incredibly charismatic as a vocalist. It's like really interesting to hear the passion there and the way that he manages to sell every line in a way that's incredibly intense and aggressive. It's like really kind of going at you. There's no attempt within the vocal performance to make it accessible aside from simply being in English. To be fair, there's like a catchiness to some of the rhythmic repetition of certain elements and lines there, and I do like the and how like satisfying it is when you kind of stray away from it a little bit and you go away. And there's some moments where you kind of pitch shift the vocals as well to go into the high register, and it kind of does some cool stuff with the slowing down and sort of a mutation of the vocal chops there to kind of make them almost sort of synthesized. And considering the instrumental makeup of the track there, that actually makes a lot of sense. It effectively comes down to it sounding sort of through composed, which I appreciate, primarily because I think it just makes for a more interesting experience here. Even though we do go back to that main hook line, it's just unpredictable in terms of the way that it flourishes. You know, like it adds certain things and different lengths of sort of like bass lines or drums before it sort of switches in some sort of glitchier elements or some sort of like crescendos or harder parts, or the riser randomly coming up there. But it's like a constant march instrumentally throughout the entirety of the track there. The chord note push, you know, pushing us forward there. And considering again the early 2010s, a lot of the kind of dubstep and other sort of harsher sort of bass textures, I think it's kind of filthy just how brutal that, I know brutal is kind of a generic word, but like how brutal and distorted those basses are. We're deliberately either bit crushing or pushing it on the limiter to make it quite aggressive, and it's a very, very loud track. And I think the fact that he's yelling into the microphone whilst hitting these notes there, it shows the way that he's feeling, but it also matches the intensity of some of those bass notes and the way they kind of come in and out. There's an almost kind of sinister nature to it as well, with the kind of way it kind of goes, boom, it kind of like, it's like a bomb going off, an explosion. And when you combine that with the sound of the guillotine, with the execution going on repeatedly, it's violent and visceral sounding. And I think it does kind of match what we're doing vocally there. The drums, they continue with the chord note pattern as well. They're kind of like stoic in their approach there and their presence. But they're also relatively low key, and especially with the way that things are panned, like the way that you've just got these explosive textures on the sides of the stereo field and stuff like that. And we also have these kind of these kind of weird sort of synth sequences that come in occasionally. It's very sort of surreal sounding how they kind of tap into it, especially when the video kind of cuts out there. It's almost like you're watching like a horror film or like a mini horror film or something like that. It's incredible use of resonant frequencies because the amount of low end that's captured in those bass parts just makes it sound incredibly heavy and almost sort of uncomfortable to listen to, despite the side chaining. I'm glad that the post-production's been handled. And just going back to the vocals very quickly for a second, I think part of what works so neatly with the vocals as a lead texture is like the use of the triplets there that I think was maybe included in like, or influenced some of the rap and hip hop throughout the later 2010s with some of the triplet sort of rapping kind of parts. But like in other elements, as you're in a 3-minute 30 mark, you go away from the vocals being as prominent and you have these kind of writhing sort of like creeping synths and oscillating and it's so unsettling just how much it seems like it's trying to mess with you, I suppose. It's like completely unfiltered and unconcerned with whether it sounds pleasant. It's just trying to sound heavy. And the kind of occasional squeals that you have this rhythmic sort of consistency with the looping that is satisfying by itself. But like outside of that, it's still kind of, it's just doing weird things to your eardrums. And when you combine those kind of stabby sequences or melody leads as a call and response there, because clearly we understand how to produce music here. There's nothing in here that is filler. I think especially if you're familiar with Death Grip's style there, it makes a lot more sense. But just like the way that you play with tension there, especially with the rises, for example, as I mentioned, around the 1:40 mark, that's the way that we go, yo, and we kind of process the vocals in a way where things sort of slow down in motion and then kind of build back up again. It's just, the to and fro is surreal. And we use like delays and sort of echoes on the vocals as well, such as the end there. And it's almost like you're in a trance listening to it because of how consistent it is. But because there is occasional change, you don't become disinterested in it. There's like kind of like unreal moments such as around the 1:10 mark where he's just kind of yelling and it's just so like passionate. It's just so intense the way that he's approaching that. And like then you go from that to a pause there. So they have gaps with nothing in it, I think, to help break up the intensity, the perceived loudness of the main sort of beat with the bass and drums, to then introduce something that's only on the left side of the stereo field. So I think if anything, it's a production technique as well as just a fun sort of rhythmic synth sort of texture there. We also understand though that we can't really replace the vocals as the lead here. So any sort of additional synth lead or pad elements there are on the side of the stereo field to sort of elevate or lift it up or create more sort of like stress within the mix. But I think, you know, thematically, clearly it's minor oriented, but I don't even think it necessarily plays with a specific scale even. It's just consistent, sort of like persuasively on that root note. We don't really go away from it that much. You have chord or sort of arpeggiated ideas on the individual synth sequences, don't get me wrong. It's just the main part of it is just very sort of final and straightforward despite how complex the arrangement and production is. And I think the relative simplicity to the melodies, for example, from the vocalist, you know, not to say that they did a miller's job. Clearly, they've been putting 100% into it and they do a great job here. And I think they suit the mood as something that I'm sort of assessing in retrospect. But it's just an interesting combination of elements. And I just think a lot of the feeling or mood comes not from the key signature or chord progression necessarily due to a lack of one. It's more about the tones and textures of the instruments and how they sort of integrate. The studio recording, mixing and mastering though is actually really cool. I dig it. I like the quality of the production of the vocals as well as the basses, the synthesizers, the drums. Everything is well presented in the frequency spectrum. There are resonant frequencies, but they're clearly deliberate. As well as the stereo field, things aren't always equal in the stereo field. Sometimes there's only things on the left side or the right side. Things expand and move around, and there's playing with filters and other sort of effects. There's echoes and other elements there. Use of Foley with the guillotine as well, which is kind of neat. And so ultimately you combine all these different elements there with deliberate but crushing the distortion, and we push the limiter to make it super loud. This, to be fair, was at the end of the loudness wars or during like the middle of that, or it's not the end. And so yeah, no, I'm not surprised it was pushed as much as it was. Nice use of sidechaining, bus compression, limiting is all handled. And I don't think the vocals are overproduced. They do that. This is very good. I can understand why people enjoy it. It's very different to a lot of the music that I reviewed, but then that's basically, I think, part of why it popped off so much is that it was different. And it was like a new sound for people to get into and appreciate. And I think if you consider the history of music through the 2010s, they're an important part of it for sure. There are elements that I can hear here that kind of tie into music that I heard later in the 2010s, if that makes sense. So I do feel that Death Grips were influential in that regard. Ultimately though, no applicable constructive critique. It's just the track that I'll probably need more time with to just fully sort of absorb. I don't know if I'd listen to an entire album of these guys, just because it's quite a lot. And I don't know if I necessarily enjoyed my time with it. I can appreciate the musicality and the performance and the expertise on display, but I'm just not sure if it's my mood, you know? I just don't think I'm not trying to be dismissive here. I don't think I've been this angry in a while to be able to get behind this. But I've also had people tell me that they listen to it when they're not angry and it's just like a vibe thing for them. They can listen to it whenever. I just think that just shows the subjectivity of music in general. I appreciate what they've done here and I appreciate that people enjoy it. I do feel like there's a lot to like. But thank you for watching my review of this track from Death Grip's titled Guillotine. It goes, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need to help more than ever with the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SP reviews. Spiderhands out.